You're working hard, you're building something big, but let me ask you this. What's the point of all of this if your body breaks down before you can enjoy all of your successes? Well, there's a real chance of this happening because you might be neglecting one essential part of your body and to train this part right. And this is causing literally a ticking time bomb inside of your body, which can explode at any given moment, and the likelihood of that explosion taking place increases with age. My name is Jonas and I help entrepreneurs optimize their health and performance with my scientific-based health system. And if you want to work with me, you can click the link below. And in today's video, we are going to cover what that ticking time bomb causes, how we can diffuse it, and also how we can keep up our health in the long term with strategic planning and implementation of that planning. Well, this essential part I was talking about is or are our vessels. Through our vessels, our blood runs and it transports nutrients and also oxygens to our organs. And if we don't train our vessels right, they stiffen up. And by stiffening up, they get less elastic, of course. And you can think of it like this, like vessels are in some sort of way like a fire hose. And for all my German and Swiss German fellows who are watching, a fire hose is a Feuerwehrschlauch. And if we let water in here, of course the water comes out here. And if we let a lot of water into the fire hose, what happens? It expands. Exactly. How can it expand? By it being elastic. And the same thing goes for our vessels. When our heart beats, they expand and afterwards contract again. Now, what happens to a fire hose if you first of all don't use it and just let it lay there, maybe even the sun shines on it? Well, it gets less elastic and therefore less flexible. And if we then insert a lot of water into the fire hose, what happens then? Little cracks manifest itself at the wall of the fire hose, and also there may be some calcification going on inside of the walls of the fire hose. And if we then let it lay on the floor, then use it abruptly and then let it lay again, what happens over time? It gets damaged and it can maybe even burst. And the same thing goes with our vessels. If we don't train them, they stiffen up. By stiffening up, let's call it S here, goes up, we increase something called the cyclical stress. Cyclical stress goes up, which then again damages our vessels, and by the damage which happens to our vessels, the stiffness goes up again. So this is like a vicious cycle. And we can also track the health of our vessels with concrete parameters, such, I'm not going to get into details, but just that you know, like pulse wave velocity, meaning how fast a pulse moves along the vessels. Then we have also the central pulse pressure and also the augmentation index. Those are all markers how you can concretely measure your arterial or vessel health. And just to give you some numbers, if this pulse wave velocity increases by 1 meter per second, we increase our risk of having a cardiovascular disease by 50%. If the central pulse pressure rises by 10 mmHg, which is just a quantification, we increase our cardiovascular risk by 14%. And if the augmentation index rises by 10%, we increase the risk by 32%. And by risk, I mean the likelihood of, for example, a cardiovascular event happening, such as heart attack or a thrombosis, meaning occlusion of our arteries. Exactly. So that's that. And that's the importance of, if we don't train our vessels the right way, we put ourselves at a higher risk of having a heart attack in a very concrete way. So the question now becomes, okay, if the time bomb may be ticking, how can we defuse it? Well, there are also answers to that. And maybe you think to yourself, yeah, I'm a healthy guy, I go to the gym 3 times a week or even 5 times. I should be healthy. Well, not fun fact, but like a very important fact is that if you do strength training and neglect another part of the training, which we'll get to later, you actually increase your arterial stiffness and put yourself at a higher risk of damaging your, or having a cardiovascular event or damaging your vessels. And they did a cross-sectional study where they compared weightlifters to non-weightlifters, and they found out that the pulse wave velocity was 1 meter per second higher than the ones who didn't strength train. And therefore, the ones who strength trained had a 15% higher risk for a cardiovascular event happening or taking place. So what is then the right way to train? You can approach it from the situation of, how do you make your vessels work as much as they can or should? Well, you can do this with, let me draw this here for you so that it gets very visual. I hope you recognize it. This is a person who runs. So what I want to say is endurance training. By concrete endurance training, we can improve the health of our vessels. Now, how exactly should we train? Well, the study protocols with the most success said that one should train 3 to 5 times per week with an intensity of 40 to 85% of their maximal capacity, and the duration was 15 to 50 minutes. And how can you measure this? So let's say your maximal pulse is 200. If you then take like 50%, you are training at a pulse or heart frequency of 100. So that's how you can calculate in which intensity you are training. And if you do this, you will decrease the stiffness of your arteries and therefore improve the health of your vessels. And that's exactly what we want to do here, right? Yeah, something else to add? No, that's good. So this is how we can concretely train our arteries and vessels. Also, what is also good intent or exercise is high intensity exercise training. And there, a very well-studied protocol and a good protocol was the Norwegian 4x4. What's that all about? It is a high-intensity training where you train for or run for 4 minutes at a very, very high intensity, which you can barely keep up over 4 minutes, and then you run slowly for 4 minutes to rest, and then you do this 4 times. So that's the Norwegian 4x4, which reduces also your heart age by many years. Also, if you strength train, studies have found that if you focus more on the concentric movement, like concentric, like contracting, you will decrease your arterial health. And if you focus more on the eccentric movement, you can also increase your arterial health a little bit. Okay, coming now to the third step. How can you plan in this protocol for the long term? Of course, you still want to integrate strength training into your routine to avoid to avoid muscle loss, and therefore, like, if we lose muscle, of course this isn't good for us in the long term. So we want to keep strength training in our protocol for sure, but the key to implementing this is, of course, it comes down to the basic. So meaning prioritizing this, because now we're aware of the fact of how important the endurance training is for our long-term health. And if we are healthy in the long term, of course, we can enjoy life more and what we've built up for ourselves, right? So that's what we want. So prioritization comes into the play here at a very high stake. So you want to plan in when you are going to do your endurance training. For example, me personally, I do it right after the strength training because then I strength train and then I train my endurance, and I have it in one block, and I don't lose time by going to the gym, going home, and going again to the gym. And if you want to go really in depth, or like plan really well, a behavior change technique which increases the adherence to your routine is that you always want to train your plan your training at the same time every week, and thereby create routine. Because if we create routine, it makes adherence to the protocol more easy. Also, if you want to add another BCT, behavior change technique, you can maybe include one which is called social inclusion. Sorry. Meaning you can do your endurance training with someone together. And a lot of studies have shown that it then will be also more likely to adhere to your planned protocol. That is it. So if you do this, if you plan it in, if you follow this concrete structure, you will scientifically increase the health of your arteries and therefore your overall health of your body. That was it for this video. Again, if you want to work with me, you can click the link below. And I hope you took a lot away for yourself with this video and can diffuse this time bomb. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you a good week and see you next time. Best wishes, Jonas.